Today's interview with DJ Hicksie is dedicated to DJ Squaddy. He was Hixxy's close friend, a friend to many people in the hardcore scene, and a great talent, and was sadly taken too soon.
It's been a very strange few weeks. I got a call early in the morning from Mike Descala, Recon, and we were sort of waiting for a bit more news, and unfortunately it was true. And it's just since then it's a very bizarre feeling. You know, we just couldn't place it, and he's going to be massively just missed so much. I mean, from the early get-go of me meeting Squaddy and coming into contact with him, again, Mickey Recon had only just started wanting to do sort of hardcore, so I'd gone up to Recon's studio. At the time was Above Freebeat Records in Liverpool, and we were there, and Wayne come, when I say bounding through the door, he come bounding through the door, and Mick had sort of introduced him as, you know, he was doing all this Scouse House stuff, and he came in, he played me some of it, and then he was the sort of same. He was just like, mate, I love all the hardcore stuff, I love this, and he's like, I'm going to just do this, you know, I'm going to crack on and I'm going to do some stuff. And I was just like, of course, you know what I mean? This sounds brilliant. I'd love to hear it. And, you know, everyone can hear what he did. You know, that was those early tracks were his first efforts, and he just breezed it. You know, he just done it so well. And the one thing I've always said is what was so magical about him was, and this I think is key to any artist that establishes himself as a real sort of part of a scene, and he had just a unique sound, and you know it because people wanted to replicate it. And it goes back to almost what I was saying with the Force and Styles kick drums and Scott Brown's noises and things like that. Squaddy's offs, his basses, everyone was trying to replicate. You know, people were asking, how's he doing this, how's he doing that? And he had a knack of getting vocals just sounding unbelievable. You know, they were bouncing, you know, everything about it. And I had one of the issues, again, as a sort of promoter, when you had artists all on a label that had what people would bundle in as a sound. If we did a night where we had to put people in a row, I had no worries about putting Squaddy on after Darren or Breezy or Mick or anyone, because he just had his own sounds, you know. And he's just going to be massively missed. He was just genuine, you know, and just a lovely fella. And that's been the other thing. I know people always say, you know, when people tragically pass away, but some of the stories that have come out about him that I didn't know, that I've read online, have just, some made me laugh and some made me like really tear up and just think, oh, but it was just hearing them stories again just made me realize that, yeah, he was just that type of character that was just unreal, and he could honestly turn a track round in hours that would take me months, you know, and it sends stuff through to you, and you just think, oh. And that was what was just genius about him. And it wasn't just the hardcore stuff he was good at. The Scouse House stuff he put out was just so iconic, you know. It will just stand the test of time, and that's the nicest bit that you can take from all of this tragedy of it all, and the sadness of it all, that legacy he's left with his music will live forever.
Hello, you're listening to Raw, the 90s Rave podcast with me, Tom Latcham. Well, my guest today is one of the undoubted kings of late 90s happy hardcore, and he's a little bit bonkers. Well, he is, in so much as he created the famous compilation album, loved by tens of thousands of ravers who saw him smash up the dance floors of Dreamscape, Hardcore Heaven, Helter Skelter, Slam & Vinyl, United Dance, and many others. He's lived through the birth, the death, the rebirth, and the arguable death again of 4-beat hardcore in the UK. And his 1995 hits track Toy Town certainly divides opinion, of which more later. So let's welcome to Raw the Happy Hardcore Don. It's DJ Hicksie, aka IAN HICKS. How you doing, Ian? You all right, mate?
All good, mate. All good. Thank you. Thank you.
It wasn't nice. You're welcome. You're welcome. How have you been? I mean, because I suppose this is. You've got a nice haircut.
Yeah, no, I made sure I was up at silly o'clock yesterday and stood in a queue of people about. Well, I got there for 7:45 in the morning, and there, believe it or not, was people still queuing. I thought, no, my hair just looked awful, and just luckily. I am grey. But if I cut my hair, the top isn't quite grey yet. But the sides, I just looked like, it was horrible. So
well,
yeah,
you look good to us. And by the way, the reason why I was saying this is because it's not going to go out instantly. This is the first day, or this is the second day when you're able to have your haircut after the lockdown. So, well, it's nice that you felt that you were coming on Raw, Ian, and that you were going to look pretty for us. So, thank you very much. We're honoured. We're honoured.
I didn't think of it that way round, but actually, the time of it was good. But honestly, that date couldn't have come quick enough. My hair, it looked awful. So
good, man. Well, listen, you look fantastic, and thank you for joining us. Appreciate it. So, Ian, when ravers think of 90s happy hardcore, no matter who they are, your name is almost always the first that comes to the forefront of their minds. Why do you think that is?
I don't know though. I think there was a collection of DJs and producers around then that we were lucky that we were all producing. A lot of us sort of all came together as a group, I suppose, not producing together, but we shared dub plates. We were sending promos to each other, and it just sort of changed as the scene was sort of evolving, and there was the definite sort of split with the more jungle drum and bass side of things, and then there was a more definite 4/4. There, you can almost sort of pinpoint a period where it was getting like that, and the people that went on the more 4/4 and the pianos and the vocals and the beginnings of happy hardcore, we was all, I don't know, just in and around each other's business, I suppose, and yeah, I'm just lucky to be part of that sort of group. There is a definite sort of bundle of DJs that were, all running labels at the time. We were all going to music house, getting our dub plates cut and JTS. And yeah, it was a really just exciting time because everything was sort of evolving and there was a lot of stuff changing and different areas of the sort of country were opening up to sort of the happy hardcore, beginnings of happy hardcore. And yeah, it is nice to be bundled into that little group.
I don't think you're bundled in, mate. I think you're sat atop the pile. And if Slipmatt created the happy hardcore sound as we sort of first came to know it with the SMDs, and that combined a 4-beat with plus a breakbeat with those pianos, unashamedly happy sounding at a time when rave music was quite dark, you were one of the main drivers of that happy 4-beat sound. What is it about you specifically that drew you to that kind of sound?
Always since I fell in love with like rave music, I suppose, or acid. Back the first time I sort of heard stuff was via my brother. He was older than me, and he ventured out and he started talking about this early acid house sort of stuff, and I always liked what was a little bit more sort of uplifting, I suppose, if it had a vocal in it especially. And then as things progressed, even with the really early breakbeat sort of rave dons, sort of the early 90s, 91, I always leaned towards not the darker side of things, I suppose. I just loved just euphoric riffs, melodies, the beginnings of even like the early Prodigy stuff before they sort of broke through. It was always there, sort of like the melodies that I was just like, oh my God, listen to that. And I suppose I've just always sort of split as the music sort of split or evolved. One side's gone one direction, and I've just took a course of generally what I like. And when I sort of sit in the studio, even now, I tend to, I don't know, my ears will always sort of sway towards something that's just got a melody to it or something to it.
Why do you think that is? Is there something in your personality that that lends itself to that?
I don't know. I'm quite grumpy, so I don't
Well,
know.
that's what I mean. From my sort of limited dealings with you over, recently and over the years. I mean, you've said that to me before. You're like, I might do a grumpy old mentalist with you because I am incredibly grumpy and I've got loads to moan about. So that sort of doesn't seem to be in keeping with the hands in the air, let's hold hands
Yeah,
together, happy hardcore sound.
yeah, no, I know. I think I'm not rude with it, but I don't know. And people say to me sometimes when I'm DJing, I come off, they're like, "Why don't you smile? Why aren't you smiling?" And I'm thinking, "No, I'm all right. I've just must have a resting grumpy face." And that's it. And I'm quite even again back to the real early days of me starting to DJ. I didn't want this to be. I quite like the mysteriousness of, the first time I met Carl Cox was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, that's Carl Cox. Same with Slipmat, same with everyone, Ramos, all of them. When I first met them, I love that mystique of, oh my good God. And, I don't know, I just quite liked back in the day, you'd be in a very sort of dark rave or wherever you were, not a club. And the DJ was almost a silhouette, you didn't really sort of see it. So I'm quite like that. I love the fact that an MC is willing to go up on our set and be the front man and do all of that. I'd rather just be like blank. So I don't know. I suppose I forget that sometimes people are sort of looking at me, and I'm not the most energetic behind the decks. I've just never bought into any of that.
I mean, you say that, but you are also a sometime MC, and we're going to come to that later on. So I'm not sure what you're talking about.
The word MC loosely, very.
So I wonder actually whether Happy Hardcore. I mean, it had a lot of success, and then it sort of died off. I wonder actually whether it might have had a better reputation if it had been called Grumpy Hardcore.
Yeah.
You've been one of the leading South Coast hardcore artists, which is an area that perhaps doesn't get enough credit for its development of hardcore. What do you think defined the South Coast sound, and what was its influence on the happy hardcore scene in the 90s?
Again, it was a really unique hub down on the coast, especially from my point of view. I walked into the record shops in Portsmouth, and one of them, Fusion, at the time, beforehand it was Powerhouse, and then it went to Movement, and then Chris Grayston, who started Fusion, bought the record shop, and it was just it was a hive of just activity all the time. And I'd be in there, from the second it opened till late at night, and Ramos was being there, Varna Groove would be in there, Druid, Supreme, everyone would just sort of come to and from. And, out of there, again, we interlinked ideas. We was using each other's sort of, well, not my studio, but we was using the studios that everyone was using at the time, whether it be with Hectic, with Sunset Regime, who was doing bits and bobs, Trixie, that a little bit later on, Trixie was then opening up, Jim Sullivan was opening up his studio and doing bits and bobs with Hectic, and RSR Records, which was where I did my first release with, was Sunset Regime. And I don't know, I suppose it's just one of those things when you've got a lot of the stuff back then. I always believed, or just had that thought of, it was these little hubs of record shops predominantly. That's where the tape packs went, that's where the new releases went, it's where everyone went. And whenever you connected with other DJs or other producers, normally they were connected to a record shop. There's a lot of people that started off life, whether they were working in the record shop or own the record shop, or even just in there, just sat on the settee all day, just listening to what was going on. And I think with the coast, it was great that we had Fusion as a promoter. There was Adrenaline down there as well. There was one called Origin, which was more towards sort of the Worthing and Brighton way. Obviously off the back of Stearns, which was just a huge sort of imprint on the rave scene on the coast as well. And then it just sort of progressed, and other promoters. Tasmania was another one on the south coast. And it's mad that sort of happened. And it wasn't an exclusive, the south coast is thriving. Everywhere was like it. It was just that our hub, or our portal was, everyone that was sort of had a record label or was making music, we saw each other pretty much on a daily basis back then.
Right. Okay. And as for you personally, this is a time for you to, I don't know, you might hide your light under a bushel, but how do you view your personal influence in the development of the 90s rave scene and that happier sound? Come on, you can be big-headed now, mate.
No, I know, but I just wouldn't ever. I wouldn't say I intentionally set out to say I'm gonna, change this or I'm gonna do this. I just did me. Do you know what I mean? And along the way, if that sort of influenced anything or changed anything, I was just driven to just make music. DJ. I just wanted my sets to be the best. I wanted me just to do me. I never really honestly thought past, oh, this is going to have an impact with everything. With me, everything sort of progressed. That, with the early startings of Essential Platinum, when I sort of got to know Dougal really quickly and really well, and we just sort of hit it off. And for two people, I lived in Portsmouth, he lived in Northampton. And, back then we didn't really have, we didn't have mobile phones. We had landline numbers, and we met through cutting dub plates, and we started talking, and we just seemed to just completely vibe off of each other's ideas. And it was like, right, okay. And I can remember just vaguely, because again, getting old, my brain is definitely freezing slowly. We was talking about doing just a track together. We said, look, should we get some ideas together? Let's do a tune. And I came away, and then I was thinking, do you know what? We need a label. We should just start a label. And I just brought it up with him the next time we was up in London. And he was like, yeah, sounds a great idea. Let's just sort of crack on. And it was, that again, it wasn't nothing that I thought, oh my God, this is going to change other things within the scene. It was just that driving sort of force of us. You just thought, right, but this is going to be us. We can then try and get other people on the label. And it's just that next step. And it was the same even with like how Bonkers came about and things like that. They were just logical sort of steps that happened, not by chance, but something happened. And then I sat there and I thought, well, actually, if that's going to happen, then what about this? And it was all just around just trying to move things forward, I suppose. So I get it. A lot of people say, it's lovely to hear when people talk about, how much impact your music or mixes or, certain sets. That's the main one for me. When someone brings up a event and they will say how to Scouter, what event it was, or Dreamscape, the number, and they tell you about that set, and they go through tunes, and sometimes, I honestly wouldn't have a clue what they're talking about, but then they say, will you play this tune? And I know the tune, but I'd think, oh my God, that's so cool that now they're still sort of talking about, what we did right back then. So I get it. It is lovely. It's very nice to hear. But it's like I said, at the time, honestly, I just plodded along. Do you know what I mean? Just did my own thing.
It's fascinating to hear how you did it, Ian, and we're going to explore much more of it here on Raw as we continue. We're going to talk more about your early years very shortly here on Raw, the 90s Rave podcast.
X amount of pressure, X amount of raw.
So still here, I'm delighted to say, with the South Coast Don, one of the kings of happy hardcore, it's IAN HICKS. Excuse me. Hello, Ian. Let's go back to your early years, because ravers the world over know you for being at the front and centre of happy hardcore explosion during the mid-90s. But on Raw, we like to go back to get to know you a little bit better. What were you like as a kid? You probably weren't. Were you a grumpy kid?
Oh, but I just was... Yeah, I just generally was a proper pain in the arse. So anyway, I can say, I got into music at a really early age. I think my first deck, I'm sure it was either my 11th or 12th birthday. I think it was my 11th, because I was just so fascinated with like scratching, DMC, the early sort of hip hop stuff. Just as a kid, I can just remember they're making all these noises. They're doing this sort of stuff that's just like ridiculous. This is awesome. And I can remember my sort of hi-fi setup. It was the days where you had like a phono button for the record player and then a tape button. And if I left my finger on the tape button and pushed in and off the phono button, I could sort of scratch. Well, not scratch, not at all. I'm not saying I was scratching, but in my head, as sort of however old I was living the dream. I was up there. So yeah, I always said it. And again, some of my like school friends, we all was just into it so much, even though we couldn't necessarily at that age go raving or go to, there was a few illegal raves sort of going on that we was all like, oh, this stuff's like insane. But we was all into the music, we was just like, wow, Beastie Boys and stuff like that was all happening. But the other side of it, there was just all this mad beats and bleeps that were just amazing. So yeah.
Do you view yourself as a musical person or a musical child, or is this the same thing?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I was very lucky. I moaned about it at the time, but my mum and dad, you know, we had music lessons, keyboard lessons, piano lessons. And at the time, I moaned about it. And
very useful in the end.
In the end, and I wouldn't say I can't play the keyboard when you got someone like Darren Styles, Jace UFO, people like that. When you watch them play the keyboard, you're like, wow, that's amazing. I'll get by, you know, someone can hum me something, I can play it. But yeah, as time went on, it was very handy that I've got I suppose an ear that if someone does something, I can tell whether it's sort of in tune or not in tune, I suppose.
Okay. And when the rave sound first came along, what were the first sort of tracks or track that really stood out for you that made you think, nah, this is a bit of me, this?
Well, strangely, one of the really earliest things that I got on tape was there was a track called Work It to the Bone, and it was Easy Posse, Everything Starts with an E. You know, it was, and that was, again, it was that almost little bit of tongue-in-cheek. There was something naughty about it. And I can remember sort of hearing that and being like, whoa, you know, what is this? And then there are other like bits and bobs, because my brother was a lot older. They got Centre Force set copies on tape of what Centre Force FM were doing. So I was and I used to nag my brother. I'd be like, please, give me the tape, please. And back then, you know, the tapes were quite a rarity, and it wasn't, you know, people didn't duplicate tapes as much. It was just, you had this one tape that did the round sort of thing. And I was always like, please just get me anything. And then even the same with Steve Jackson on Kiss FM. You know, you'd get one of them tapes and some of them tunes, you'd just be like, oh God, this is like magic. This is just insanely good. And I suppose along the way, it just all blurred into like going into a rave direction with the music, you know, from more the sort of, like I said, you know, I was mad into Run DMC, Beastie Boys, all of my mates were. We just loved, again, anything that was sort of, I suppose for us, it was that real difference of, it wasn't commercial, it wasn't pop music, it was just like, oh, what's this? This is great. So yeah,
I love those stories. People get in touch with us and they comment about how, you know, Stu Allen, for instance, is a really good example because he was on the radio, and people are like, we couldn't get it where we were, so we would drive every Sunday night to record it where we were and play it. And these stories are just like pre-internet. Some people who listen to this, you know, who don't know anything other than the internet, will be like, what on earth are these old people talking about? But
where I lived, there's right on the top of Portsdown Hill, some people could get Kiss FM up there. So you would be very, very lucky. And like some people, you could put batteries in the back of their stereo, their little ghetto blasters or whatever, to go up there, they'd record it and they'd bring it and you'd listen to it, and it would, like, the reception would be in and out. It'd be like awful, but you'd still sit there and you would analyze every bit of it, because it was, back then, I don't know, like the pirate radio station vibe as well. It was just like, this is amazing, you know, this is something that's quite, you know, a little bit new, it's different. And yes, well, for me, it was in Portsmouth, there was a pirate radio station called Delta Force. They started, that was amazing, but again, the signal was just always awful on and off. And then we'd get Centre Force tapes if we were lucky, and Kiss FM, Steve Jackson bits and bobs. If we were lucky, they just did the rounds.
We really hope you're enjoying yet another one of Raw's in-depth interviews about the rave scene, which we are proud to say are now all curated into the British Library Sound Archive. All of us here at Raw HQ love how much you love what we do, and your generous one-off donations have been a huge help in covering our initial costs. But we're now a team of 5, putting in a combined 80 hours a week for no wages, with big plans to expand further, and so our costs are going up. As such, we could really use your help to keep Raw growing and developing, as you've seen us do since our launch in July 2020. First up, go and check out our brand new website. It's rawuk.com, where you can find loads of cool extra content, and you can grab Raw's first ever range of merchandise. That's rawuk.com for our new flashy website. We've also launched a new membership scheme where you can support us financially to create more content on an ongoing basis for less than the price of an oat milk cappuccino. Plus, you get great perks in return. Head to patreon.com/Raw UK Pods. That's patreon.com/Raw UK Pods to see exactly what's on offer. You can also join our YouTube membership, which is basically the same. Or if you're not asked about a membership, but you'd like to support us with a few quid as a one-off or a repeat donation, then head to our website and click the PayPal link. A reminder of that new website URL, yet again, rawuk.com. Big love and respect to you all. Please keep supporting us. Hope you enjoy the rest of the act.
Friday the 20th of August 2021, a new event, Return to Source, celebrating 90s rave, hardcore, jungle, happy hardcore, drum and bass and techno, touches down at Suki 10C in Digbeth, Birmingham. We have Fusion South Coast legend DJ Druid, Quest and Fiber Optics DJ Fallout, the Uprising Northern legend that is DJ Paulo, and London Town's final trickster playing his first happy hardcore set in over 18 years. Tickets are priced at only £14. Just search Facebook and Eventbrite for Return to Source Rave.
So what made you go from a tape playing 11-year-old to a raver?
Again, we started buying sort of vinyl, like a group of my friends. There was the record shops in Portsmouth. There was one Razzle, there was Powerhouse, Domino Records, and I used to go. The DJ who run Razzle Records, Albury, for me, he's up there as just one of the most amazing DJs. You know, I used to just stand in there, and again, I must have just annoyed people because I was like at the time, I must have been 13, 14, teenager, pain in the ass again. But I was just like mesmerised by anyone that was touching the decks, like even to the fact that he had a Newmark mixer. He had the one with the little sampler button on the side. And I just used to just stand there for like hours, just like mesmerised, and probably didn't have like loads amounts of money, so I could probably buy one bit of vinyl every so often. But I'd spend hours in there. And, they'd be forever going, "Now, what about this one?" And I'd be like, no, keep going. I can only get one record, so keep going.
But then you would have made sure that you got the very best one. So actually, it's not a bad system. Yeah. So then, what were the raves? What was the first rave?
God, I suppose we went to like legally. The first ones were over. Oh God, I'm trying to think now. Stearns was an early one for us. We all managed to get fake ID and things like that. Went there a few times, which, was unreal. I got snuck into a couple of clubs via the back door in Portsmouth, one called Central Park. And that was the first time I met Carl Cox. And again, they knew I was young, and they knew I was a kid. And I got plonked in the DJ booth, or by the DJ booth. And I got told, "Don't fucking move, you're going to get us in trouble, you do not move." And I was like, yeah, all right then. And I got to watch Groove Rider and Fabio back then. That at the time it was just like, oh my god. And it was the first time that I got to see Carl Cox. And he did like this. Well, he had 4 decks set up. He was doing it like a 3-deck thing, but he had 4 decks on the go. And I was just like, what? You're doing my nutting. Do you know what I mean? Everyone, and again, back then it was like he just took it to this next level where he was like, yeah, I'm a 3-deck DJ, and that was such a big thing. It was like, oh my god, Carl Cox does 3 decks. Well, mate, I was expecting.
Was that an inspiration for you to become to go? Oh, I want more than just being a raver. I want to be in that DJ booth.
Yeah, I suppose so. I knew I wanted to be a DJ from as soon as I started buying the sort of vinyl. I knew. I suppose, well, not that I knew I would do it, but your dreams or in your head, you're thinking, well, all these little events were going off, like in Portsmouth, and again, at this point, we were starting to get access to the sets. So, one of my favourite ones, I've been trying to track it down. So if anyone knows of this set, there's a DJ, there's two Frankie Bones. In the Portsmouth South Coast area, there's Frankie Shagbones. Now, he used to do this thing with the transformer cut-off thing, where he would make it sound like the tracks are gating. But anyway, back in the day, he did a set in Central Park, and the tape I bought from one of the clothes shops in Portsmouth used to do the tapes, and I must have played this tape. I honestly, at that age, I'd say hundreds of times, and that was probably the most sort of moment, I'd say, where I was just like, you know, this DJ is doing stuff to these records that I can hear, and he's making me like these records that I like anyway, but he's making me now love them. He's making me think I want to do this like what you're doing it. And there's one track, and it was a commercial. Well, it wasn't commercial at the time. He dropped Nomad, I Want to Give You Devotion. And it hadn't charted at the time, but he did this like gate effect with either the crossfader or the cut-off switch. And I was just like, this is like mind-blowing to me. This is insane. And I suppose maybe, yeah, from there on in, it was just my goal to I just wanted to DJ. And, you know, we would take our sort of setups to our little local youth club, and, you know, the people that were all sort of into it, we just, you know, anything, even like the ghetto blaster in our youth club, you know, there'd all be a few of us that would sit there, you'd press play on the tape, and then we'd all be pissing around with the EQ just to piss around, you know what I mean? We'd be like turning the bass on and off and just doing all that. So I suppose, yeah, again, it just sort of evolved progressively, you know, well, quite rapidly once I started getting more and more vinyl.
So what was your first gig? Because our researcher thinks it was a small rave on the Isle of Wight called Overload. Is that right? 92, 93?
Very clever. Yes.
Thank you. Well, we'll pass that on. I can't take credit for that.
Very clever. Yes, it was. And you know, I was on there as Hicks, my last name, just Hicks. And it was really weird, even with my name. My nickname was always Hixxy. It never had an X in it or nothing. Well, I suppose when you were at school and things, you never really wrote your name down like that. That sort of came a little bit later, I suppose, when I can't remember how it changed. I can remember, like, I did the Isle of Wight gig, and then there was a few others that sort of came up, and it just I didn't like it on the flyer. It sort of, I don't know, it just didn't look like what some of the other DJs looked like. So I put an X in it, one X in it at the time, so it was Hicks, and I wrote it down, and I was like, and I put another one, so it was HIXX. So there was some gigs that even like the first release I did on RSR is DJ Hicks, and it was Ramos actually. We was down the record shop just chatting, and he was like, "Why are you Hicks? We all call you Hicksy." And I was like, "Yeah, it's like a bit of a fucking no-brainer." I was a bit like, "Yeah, a bit of a no-brainer." Ramos was just like, "Everyone calls you Hicksy," you know, and I'd been called Hicksy for, you know, all pretty much.
It served you quite well, to be honest, in years to come. What sort of stuff were you playing in those early days of those early raves? In, was it 92, 93?
Yeah, just all the real obvious breakbeat, rave stuff, you know, like all the Acing stuff, anything on XL, anything obviously by Slipmatt. He's just a dickhead ever come to music back then. He's just insanely talented, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And top bloke.
Yeah. Yeah,
he's all around top. So, and then it must have gone quite well because you've had a career out of it. So something went well in that first gig. When did you then start to break out and do bigger gigs, maybe raves that were outside of the South Coast, that sort of stuff? Date-wise, I don't know. It just sort of, again, it blurs. Sort of, it just all led on to each other that you'd get a really local sort of gig. And then someone that was there would then say, "Look, we'll get you." And you'd sort of, and I can remember the first time I travelled down to Cornwall, we did a club that a lot of people know down there called the Shy Horse. And it's like nuts. The place was like a complete eye-opener again for me. You know, it was just like I walked in and it was like, wow, this is nuts. You know, and then from there, then you'd get another gig just up the road. And then I can remember getting my first sort of gigs in Wales and even like Scotland, you know, when that first happened, you'd just be like, hang on. And they were always little ones. And, you know, you'd inside yourself, you'd always want a better time. You know, you'd always want that. You'd always be like, no, I want this time. I want that time. But, you know, you just took what you took. And
You know, I see a lot of it now where people are like, oh, I never got good times on event. It never happened. It never happened. Mate, I used to have to drive to Dielectric Club in Diehard, and I'd be doing opening 9 till 10. I've done it time and time and time again. You know, you just got to just get on with it. And I suppose if you offer something that people like or the promoter likes and can see things happening, you know, it's like the back rooms. You know, I was forever in back rooms, and I'd be gutted because I'd think, no, I should be main bloody stage. You know, your head would be bigging yourself up thinking, I want this, I want that. But after time, when I started seeing I was getting the back rooms busier, that's when my head changed a bit, and I thought, okay, you know. And I've had a couple of times promoters come up to me and was like, you know, you've caused a bit of mayhem tonight. We've had a bit of a queue trying to get into room 2 through room 1, so we'll sort you out next time. And that's when you sort of think, okay, all right, maybe something's happening now. And that's the thing. I think it's hard because your head is always miles ahead of probably where you are. Do you know what I mean? You're always thinking, mate, I'm there. I should be up there with bloody Slipmat, and I should be, you know, 12 till 1, and I've got to be the highlight because I've got all this music to play. But in reality, it's not. You know, that's not how it works. And it did take me a while to start working that out. And I suppose that was probably, you know, I'm still learning now, but you know, 94, 95, I learned quite quickly that it's like, well, you know, not everyone knows who you are. Not everyone knows your music. They might know the tunes, but they won't put that tune with you. You know, and that's still the same today. You know, there's still, you know, there's some amazing producers out there trying to break through, but they've still just got to get past that knowledge of someone loving the tune, but not realizing, oh, that's by that artist or that's by that person. So yeah, back then it's
and what did your parents think about the your desire to become a DJ? Because it's I mean, it's like saying you want to be a footballer, and it's you know, it's difficult to do.
Yeah, I mean, luckily my mum and dad are so supportive, and again, now me at my age, I realise how good they were. You know, my bedroom was above the kitchen. Now I had it so loud one day in my room as a teenager that the kitchen lights, they were like the long strip lights, fell off the ceiling and smashed. But my mum and dad, whilst obviously I got a bollocking, but you know, it's things like that. And then you know, the neighbours didn't really like the music. You know, they definitely didn't like it, and they had the odd little grumble to my mum and dad. But my mum and dad just like, oh look, he's all right. And I never took the mick. It was never late at night. It was just every so often, but they were massively supportive. And
right,
I suppose because they saw that it was something that actually really sort of interests me, I got excitement from it. I was forever talking about it. I was forever, you know, like I said, badgering them, because back then it wasn't, when I was a teenager, my income was coming from my parents. So it's sort of like, I want to get this record, but it's an import, Mum. And that was the thing. It's things like that now. Think of that. An import was more money than a UK track. Do you know what I mean? So sometimes you'd be like, oh, please, please, please. I just need like an extra few quid. Come on. And they were. And I can remember the sort of turning point for my dad, especially when he sort of sat me down, was, you know, my first release had happened on RSR. And very quickly back then, you would see a return. And Ramos, Supreme, Sunset Regime. But next time I saw him, they was like, we got a check for you. I was like, yeah, cool. And they gave me this check, and my head was like, okay, all right.
Much was it?
And I tried to act sort of a bit cool, and I was like, okay.
How much was it? How much was it?
It was just over $1,000.
Lovely
so
stuff.
I was like, okay, and you know, I was like sort of thinking, right, be cool. And you know, and I took it home and I showed my dad, and he was like, hey. And I was like, that's the sort of first lot of royalties, Dad. And he was like, okay. And then he said, so how do we develop this then? You know, we can get this sort of like changing, so you know, you can do this more. And I was like, well, yeah, I could do this full time. I think I've got a good shot at it. And again, it just carried on. You know, we and it's like, even sort of like it's a hard one to talk about. I always sort of say to people that this is a job for me. It is a job, but it's a bloody brilliant job. Do you know what I mean? It's such a good job, but it is a job. and you know, so for me to do this as a job, I have to make an income. And with some people, they sort of think, well, you should just do that for nothing. I'd do that for nothing. I would do that for nothing. Don't get me wrong, I would do this for nothing. If it wasn't my job, I'd still be doing it. I'd still be cracking on and I'd still be trying. However, it's the best way for me to make a living. It's awesome. Do you know what I mean? I still get to do something that really is still, the fire still in me, that I love music. I love DJing. Might not look like it when I'm DJing. I've got the face of thunder on sometimes, but I'm loving it. And whilst I say I'm lucky to have this as a job, I've got the job still for a reason. Do you know what I mean? There's obviously, I'm putting stuff out there that someone wants. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, back then, yeah, I can just remember my dad's face. It was brilliant. I wish I had a camera actually, just to re-show him and just go, look at your face. But yeah, they were massively supportive. It was,
so
you know,
useful.
all my family were. I'm quite strange. I've never, I didn't really keep flyers. I didn't keep magazines. I've not kept all my vinyl that I've released. I regret it now massively, like massively. But luckily, my family kept bits and bobs. They, you know, they were just like brilliant. You know, everything. They had little pictures on the wall and everything, and I was just like, okay. But now, where I'm like, especially with my kids, because I haven't been able to show them everything physically. I've had to show them stuff online. You know, I ain't got all the Bonkers albums, which sounds mental. Do you know what I mean? It sounds bizarre, but when I got them, because you'd always get a couple of boxes, and I just give them away to people. They'd be like, oh, yeah. You know, and it's like, even recently, I had someone sort of ask for a request or something for someone's birthday, and I was like, do you know what? I physically haven't got an album that I could even give you at the moment. And I've got into Discogs lately. It's a bit addictive, Discogs. I've done during lockdown. I'm not even going to say, but the postman knocks on the door and he's like, more for you. And I'm like, well, yeah. And it's so addictive. But the problem is the Bonkers albums, some of them are mentally priced now. And I'm like,
really? How much?
Oh, well, some of Bonkers ones, they're sort of like 60 quid upwards.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And you're thinking, well, I want to get the whole collection. I think it's Bonkers. What did I have turn up? I did get a Bonkers one. I don't know where it's in these drawers. Hang on.
That's brilliant. Collecting Bonkers back
I know.
again.
It's mental, isn't it? Oh, this is my latest one I bought. I had to buy a Clubland Extreme 9 because I ain't got that. They're the other ones. I've not got the Clubland Extreme albums. I'm an idiot. But I think it's just, I don't know. I'm a dickhead.
Well, I've got to say, I don't know who owns the rights, but I know that Viberlite still make quite a lot of money selling their CD packs, like still regularly, and they're all online. You're like, so there you go, Ian. Maybe you could become some sort of collector or dealer.
That's the thing. I think it has got back to people wanting a bit of physical, rather than just downloading something. There is nothing better than having a bit of vinyl that you can sort of like hold and touch, and even with it. And again, CDs. I know it's bizarre because you can just click it online. It's not as nice as sort of vinyl, but yeah, physical copies. And why I regret that, probably the main one I regret is not keeping flyers. I really wish I'd kept more flyers, because I know some of the boys have kept all their flyers, and you know, they show me little clips, or then they've posted something online. I think, oh man, I'd love to look through my flyer collection now.
Well, they are worth quite a bit of money, so what a shame you didn't really.
I won't be buying them, I can tell you.
No, indeed, they are hugely expensive. I think your partner might have words to say about that. You're already buying the bloody CDs, Ian, and no flyers. And before we just sort of go into the next section, I'm interested. We've asked about your DJs that inspired you, and you said Slipmat and Carl Cox, etc. What about MCs? What is your take on MCs? Are you a fan? I know you are one from time to time, as we've mentioned.
I've always been MC led, you know, from the early days. Top Buzz, from Portsmouth, there was a MC called Lucky, and they were the sections of the tape you remembered, you know, because they'd say something that either made you laugh or made you think, oh, I wish I was there, or so, you know, growing up. You know, Top Buzz, I'd say Mad P, just hugely influential on just sort of everything. And, you know, even now, when you've got an MC an MC can grab a crowd. A good MC can grab a crowd with or without a mic. And there are some MCs that I watch come on stage and they just absolutely mesmerize the crowds, you know. And then when they start doing bits and bobs from the early days right the way through till now, and they're still doing that thing. I think an MC, whilst, I was Larry and I got on the mic and shouted a bit sometimes, I couldn't do a whole set. You know, it's insane. You know, I think it's so clever what they do. I've always been MC led. I prefer an MC. I like them coming through my monitors. I can, you know, work out what I'm doing when I'm hearing what they're doing. Some people, you know, some DJs don't like it coming through the monitors, but I much prefer it. But yeah, back in the day, I'd say, you know, Mad Pig, Top Buzz, you just amazing.
Well, I was going to say, if anyone wants to hear Ian MCing, they should just go online to the Millennium Jam DOUGAL set, and you will hear a Pompey accented Ian shouting. You're actually quite good, mate. Honestly, I listened to this because we had a question from an MC Hurricane, in fact, who was back to back with you on that set, saying, "Does he remember? You know, he was lovely to me. He was great." And actually, I listened to it. I'm like, I've heard a lot worse. So there you go, mate.
I think I just did it. I don't know why I did it. Sometimes I did it because the mic got left, or, you know, there was no MC at all. And I don't know. You know, I did a few times. I went over to America with Force and Styles, and, you know, over there I'd MC for them, but not MC. I would say stuff on the mic. I won't say MC. But yeah, I've always liked the MCing side of things. I was lucky to be knocking around with Marley, you know, from a young nipper age, watching him just, again, he's just another one of those MCs. He's very like Mad P for me, because he just says bits and you just go, that's so good. It's so good. And 90 from the Coast as well. He was another one that was just massively influential of, you know, what I liked and what I just used to buzz. You know, some MCs that come on my set, I get so excited because they're on my set. I'm still, you know, at my age, I still stand there and go, they're on my set, yeah. Do you know what I mean? I'm just like,
that's very sweet,
you dickhead. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, I do. I still get excited working with MCs. You know, I don't want to say the MCs I don't enjoy working with.
No, probably sensible.
You know, but I do. I get excited by it. I think it's great. You know, there has up till recently, there's been, you know, this sort of debate of the MCs. Oh, is it right for the music and things like that? And I think there are certain evolutions of the music that it doesn't fit as well. But what some of the MCs have done, they've learned to just sort of change as well, and they go in different sections of the track, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, now it works. There you go. That's that. And that's the thing. I think it's just sort of evolution, I suppose. You have moments with everything in music, whether it's DJs evolving, MCs have evolved a lot. And yeah, it's just that eventually everything finds its sort of fit again.
Well, that's it for another episode of Raw, and if you like what you've heard, we'd love you to get involved. All of us here at Raw HQ buzz hard off how much you, the Raw crew, enjoy our work, and your generous cash donations have been a huge help since our launch. But we're now a team of 5, putting in combined 80 hours a week for no wages. We've got loads of plans to go further, expand our team and offer, but that does mean that our costs are also increasing. So we could really use your help to keep Raw growing and developing, as you've done since we started. So please do check out our website. Initially, it's rawuk.com for interesting extra content and to get your hands on our first ever range of Raw merchandise. That's rawuk.com. We've also launched a new membership scheme where you can donate to create more interesting and fun content on an ongoing basis, and you'll even get stuff in return. So head to patreon.com/rawukpods. That's patreon.com/rawukpods to see what's on offer. You can also join our YouTube membership, which is the same, or if you're not bothered about membership but you'd like to support us with a few quid as a one-off or repeat donation, head to our website and click the PayPal link. That website URL, one more time, rawuk.com. Respect to you for your support and for getting to the end of this episode. Please keep supporting us and help ensure there's more quality content coming your way on a regular basis. Oi, oi.
Oh, Sorry, mate. Hang on. I should have
It's
turned
all
that
right,
off.
mate.